Juliet, hello, great to chat to you.
Kristy-Lee, lovely to see you.
Today we alluded to what we're chatting about actually in our last episode, and we're tackling the concept of being fearful as a leader, maybe having a fear of leading altogether, or having moments of fear in our leadership journey. And I cannot believe actually we haven't spoken about this before, and I don't actually think I've spoken about this a lot, but I see it all the time.
I know. I think it's interesting, isn't it? I agree, because I feel like that too. And it seems like such an obvious thing to talk about, but we actually haven't. So I'm glad that we are now. And I think this, because it does have such a big impact on how we lead and how our teams respond to us as leaders. So, I think it's really important. And I think we all have an element of it.
I think so too. Yeah, I think even the most confident people have moments of fear in their leadership. But I think a lot of us, especially if we've stumbled into a leadership role, like we've started a business and no one starts a business because they want to lead a team, like it's just not a factor in our decision making, or we've been really exceptional in our technical career and therefore been elevated into leadership. We're actually quite scared of leading because ironically, no one actually gives us any training or development, which is something I work with clients on all the time because it frustrates me, on how to lead. Like we ad nauseum give people training on how to be technically brilliant in their job or how to communicate or how to do other things. And we seem to think that someone turns up in a leadership role and knows how to lead automatically.
I think that's so true. And, we were talking about a toxic culture in the last episode. And I think this sort of fear can lead to that, because in our fearfulness, we can withdraw from leadership. It's all too hard, too scary, or we put a sort of little carapace around ourselves so that we're not impacted, so that we can sort of separate ourselves from the team. And all of that can lead to a toxic culture, or at the very least a team that's a bit rudderless.
And we become like not in control of our teams when we do that. And I think I see it show up in people that just are not really into being the boss in their business. They don't want to be, they just think it's easier to avoid it. And so just avoid it. They either, and I've had some of my members of People Powered HR actually literally say, I just stuck my head in the sand because that seemed easier. Like maybe they were going to ask me for a pay rise or something scary. So they just stick your head in the sand, and then things just wash past you. Or you become so fearful of what's involved in leadership, you choose not to lead and just think that it'll be easier if the team lead themselves. And it's like that rudderless example you were giving, that nothing's happening in the right direction when no one's leading.
No, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about what that fear can be about. Certainly what I see is sometimes there's a fear of looking stupid. And people say this to me, how can I tell the team I don't have all the answers? Because then I will look stupid. Instead of feeling that they can go to the team and say, okay, seriously, these are my best and brightest minds. I'm not clear where the path is. I know where we're heading, but I'm not clear about the path here. What do you think? I think is really difficult. And because they're fearful, they just kind of pontificate about it and sort of say stuff that doesn't help anybody and isn't terribly meaningful. Have you seen that?
The need to have all the answers is something that pops up all the time. And when I say to people, you don't have to have the answers, it's like this revelation to them that you would go to the team and say, I know this, but I don't know that. Or I've got an idea, but I'm not sure.
And what do you think?
And it's fine. As your job as the leader is not to have all the answers. Your job is to know what direction you're going in and how roughly you want to get there. But you don't have to have all the answers on every element. And you certainly don't even have to have all the answers about the big picture stuff either. It's not your job to have all the answers. It is your job to communicate with your team about what answers you do have and you don't have. But I do see this feeling like, because I'm the leader, I have to know everything and have all the answers. Honestly, the best leaders hire people that are smarter and more talented than them every day for that very reason.
Well, that's exactly right. That is the point in a way, isn't it? Your role is to bring together people who can deliver as a team. And, you know, that saying about, you know, if you're the smartest person at the table, you're at the wrong table.
Yeah.
And I think as leaders, that's still really relevant. You don't have to be the smartest person there. You have to bring those people together and get the best out of them. And that's a completely different thing.
Yeah, and your role, and I think Simon Sinek talks about this a lot, as the leader is not to be the chief everything officer or even chief operating officer, but to be the chief vision officer. Like you set the direction, and you help people get there. But you don't have all the things, and you don't have all the answers.
Absolutely.
So I think the need to have all the answers definitely is where I see some fear coming in. I also see leaders that are they're fearful of being a leader because they feel like giving direction, giving instruction is bossy, and they don't want to be perceived as bossy, like they feel that's a negative thing. And so they end up just not saying anything, which is worse, because then no one understands what's expected of them, and our team actually do want to know what's expected of them. So they have this perception that by saying your job is to do this and I really need you to do that it's being bossy, and that's negative. And it's really not negative, because that's what our team want from us.
Totally. And I totally agree with you. I mean, that is what the team is looking for, is a sense of direction. And that, you know, that clear picture about where do I fit in this, and what do I need to do? And I agree with you. And sometimes it comes about from trying to keep everything nice. You know, it's which I think is a terribly difficult thing for leaders.
Or trying to make your team, and I hear people talk about this all the time, I want to treat them like my family.
Oh, God.
Not really sure that's the best approach. I mean, of course, we want people to feel safe and welcome and productive and motivated at work. Absolutely. But when you're trying to treat them like your family, it's not the right relationship. You're creating a mismatch there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And the dynamic is so different to a family anyway. You know, so you're sort of bringing in all the difficult bits without actually getting the value from that. I think that is really, that is a tough one. The other thing I see is leaders who don't want to hear bad news. Sometimes if they're fearful of missing targets or, you know, goals that were set with the team, they might sort of do that whole blaming other people. But often what I see is that they put up this shield around themselves because they don't want to hear the bad news anyway. And so they create distance between themselves and the team.
And the same happens when we're fearful of confrontation with our team, which is another big fear that I see come up a lot, is being fearful that discussion is going to become confrontational, or this employee is going to become confrontational, or one of our members once was avoiding doing performance reviews with her team because she was fearful that they would all ask for a pay rise, because that's what she thought happened at performance reviews. And the team were asking for reviews, and it had been 6 years for some of them, so it'd been a while. And she was just fearful because she didn't know how to do reviews. She'd never had to do them before because she hadn't been a leader before having her own team. And her second fear was, I'm a small business, I can't afford to give them all big pay increases, and that's what they're all going to ask me, and I'm fearful of having that conversation with them. And it was interesting that she just asked for some training. We did some training with her on how to do the review, so that dealt with that piece. None of them asked for a big pay rise. None of them had a confrontational conversation with her. She felt comfortable. It was a process to follow. And she actually said the result was that the team were more focused, more directed, and got better results in the next 12 months because she'd actually done something that she'd been putting off for 6 years because she was scared of it.
Gosh, and because they felt seen and heard finally.
Yeah. And she had a good team. They'd got loyal teams. There was lots of positives. But this fear was holding her back from doing one piece of leadership. So the fear can often not be broad brush across everything, but just one thing that we know we should be doing that we don't do.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? And I think also leadership, particularly in small business, can be really lonely. So you don't necessarily have somebody you can talk to about it. And, you know, and I know, I mean, our families, much as we love them, don't always understand what we're doing. So they might be really supportive, but actually not able to help in that.
Absolutely. And they'll ask at the barbecue, you know, how's that business been going? And their advice is often just not in line with what you need to hear as a business owner.
Exactly.
Coming from the best intention, but we kind of don't have that. And for me, it's why I surround myself with peer groups and with other people. And I have done that, I think, the entire time I've been in business, because you do need to have some kind of sounding boards around you to bounce things off, because it can be very isolating.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was talking with someone recently who was definitely fearful about the whole leading a team thing. And they're quite young, but their response to that was micromanaging.
Yes.
And they had actually been sort of backed up by somebody at the family barbecue because that was the way they led. So yes, in a sense, they got this sort of double whammy of being confirmed in something that's really actually creating more of a toxic culture for them.
That's really interesting. I do see that pendulum swing. So I see people go from, I'm avoiding being a boss altogether. I call them the non-boss boss. Yeah. And then the pendulum swings the complete other way, where they go into this micromanaging stage.
Yes. I can't trust anybody. I need to know exactly where everyone is and what they're doing.
And sometimes we become micromanagers because we're fearful of the people above us and their perception of our ability to lead, especially when we're new in leadership. Yes. I saw a team do this a few years ago. I was working with them, and they were promoting people that were in very technical medical roles into leadership roles without any development. Again, a bugbear of mine. And so this person got promoted into this role, and she'd applied and she was excited, and she was technically one of their best people. She was so brilliant. But she was so scared of leading and so scared of how her boss, who was a very good leader, would perceive her leading, that she went from micromanaging to not leading at all, and just completely fell apart, the poor thing, because she was so fearful of getting it wrong and the perception of those above her.
And yes, and not feeling able to talk about that with anybody, presumably not the people above her. And you can't talk to the people below you because you don't, you're the leader. You're supposed to be leading. Yeah. It's such a trap, isn't it? And then we get into our heads too much.
And I think that's where we need to engage in either participating in peer groups with other people who are in similar environments to us, whether it's other small business owners or other leaders in certain industries, or getting coaches and mentors. And I think we don't do enough of that.
Totally agree.
Actual real support from people who know what they're doing, like pick a mentor that's, from the right space. But getting coaching and mentoring, if nothing else but to have a sounding board so that you don't feel like you're going crazy, is massively valuable, to be able to just contact someone and say, I'm thinking this, what do you think? Am I on the right track? What have I missed here? I think can be one of the most valuable investments you make in yourself as a leader.
And I think the challenge, again, comes back to that fear of being seen as weak, because I need somebody to tell me how to lead. And it's not that at all. But I do think, again, that fear holds people back. I know a number of people I've worked with over the years who would have loved to have got a coach to help them, but felt that was a sign of weakness and that they weren't being a true leader because they should know how to do this. And I think that's the problem, isn't it? When we're leading people, we feel like, well, I'm a person, I should know how to lead people. It's not like training dogs or toe jumpers or something. I should know how to do this.
And I think one of the biggest challenges when you become a leader is that not everyone's like you. So whilst you know how to lead someone who is like you, you can have a team of people who are not like you. And really getting to, there's a lot of work in understanding different personality styles, different value sets, different behaviours, and leading everyone differently. That is part of that mix as well.
I think so. And also just understanding enough about yourself that you can get a bit vulnerable and say, I don't know everything. I'm not sure what I'm doing, that sort of stuff. I think building that self-awareness so that it is okay to be a bit open.
And to acknowledge that we've all got strengths and weaknesses, and that includes in our leadership skills. And to acknowledge that, okay, that style isn't my natural default. I need to really work hard on that, or I need to concentrate on actually doing that. It is incredible. And I think you've got to have a very supportive leadership network around you, both within your business and outside, to help with that sense of being vulnerable and being willing to, know where your strengths and weaknesses are.
Yes.
And sometimes it just comes with experience.
There is that. That's the joy of getting older, isn't it?
Yeah. It's true. I think most of us in our 20s would argue that, no, we are not like this, or we're not like that, or we don't.
Yes.
And as we get older, I own it.
Oh, totally. I remember even just when I started my MBA and I was leading a team, sitting in those lecture theatres going, oh, that's why that doesn't work, or that's why that person's hideous, or, whatever. Just picking up those things was amazing. But it probably would have taken me an awfully long time on my own to get there too. So
yes. Yeah. So I guess our message today is it's totally normal if you feel a bit fearful.
Totally. Yes.
Leading your team, of being a leader, of doing some of the things you have to do as a leader. And so if you feel alone in that fear, you are absolutely not. And I guarantee you speak to any leader today and they will have an experience of fear in their leadership.
Absolutely. And I think if we can give any advice, it would be to go and find other people you can talk to about it, because you're not the only one. You're certainly not alone. But you will find if you can talk with other people about it, I think you will find a lot of that fear can dissipate pretty easily.
Absolutely. And at the very least, come and join us over on our Facebook page for the Grow Your Influence podcast, and how you experience it. Juliet and I will absolutely jump in and share our experience.
Absolutely. Yes.
Come over to the Facebook page as a starting point if you're not sure where to start, and reach out to us there, and we'll help put you in touch with the right people as well. But let's share some experiences there.
Yep, perfect. Thanks, Kristy-Lee. Love talking with you. Could do this all day, really.
Yeah, that could be a mini episode series if we wanted it to be that topic.
Totally.
So
but let's come back and talk about some of these things, I think, because I think they are really important. We need to get them out and shake them around a bit.
Yeah, fantastic.
Lovely.
Thanks,
See you
Juliet.
soon. Okay.
Bye.